Namaskar viewers, hello and welcome to Sansad TV. I'm Tina Jha, you're watching Perspective. In a major milestone for India's growing space capability, the Indian Space Research Organisation successfully launched the Indian Navy's latest communication satellite GSAT-7R, also known as CMS-03, from Sriharikota on Sunday. Weighing nearly 4,400 kilograms, GSAT-7R is now the heaviest satellite ever launched by ISRO using an Indian rocket. The powerful LVM-3 launcher carried it to the Geosynchronous Transfer Orbit, also called the GTO. For context, ISRO's previous heaviest satellite, GSAT-11, weighed 5,854 kilos, but it was launched in 2018 from the Guiana Space Centre aboard the European Ariane-5 vehicle. This time, the entire mission, satellite and launcher, is 100% Indian. With a projected lifespan of 15 years, GSAT-7R replaces the Navy's earlier multi-band communication satellite GSAT-7, which was launched in 2013. Over the past decade, satellite communication technology has advanced rapidly, and the GSAT-7R reflects that evolution. So it's built with upgraded systems, enhanced bandwidth, and capabilities which are tailored to the Navy's real-time operational needs. What does this mean for India's maritime strength? How will GSAT-7R expand the Navy's communication network across the Indian Ocean and beyond? Also, what are the broader strategic implications for India's space-based defense architecture? These are some key questions that we will explore in Perspective today. Joining us are three distinguished guests. So let's begin by introducing them to you. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome on the program today Dr. Ajay Lele, Deputy Director General, Manohar Parrikar Institute for Defence Studies and Analysis, Dr. Guru Prasad, Director, Jawaharlal Nehru Planetarium, Bengaluru, and a former ISRO scientist, and Rear Admiral Dalbir S. Gujral, retired, former Assistant Chief of Naval Staff, Communications, Space and Net-Centric Operations at Naval Headquarters from 2018 to 2021. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us on the program today. Welcome to Sansad TV. Admiral Gujral, let's begin the program today with you. Since you've been associated with the project in the initial stages, let's start by understanding from you about when and why the need was felt for a dedicated naval communication satellite such as the GSAT-7 and now the GSAT-7R, which replaces the previous one?
Yeah, so the Indian Navy has been, like all other navies, it relies very heavily on satellite communications. So unlike a land-based forces like Army, Air Force, and other security forces, they are the most important terrestrial links which are available, like optical fiber. World over, 95% of communications are handled through optical fiber, and only about 95% or only about 5% are handled through satellites. But for our ships at sea, now this satellite links become the most important, and the optical fiber, the other land-based links are not available. So Indian Navy has been, from last 3 decades, using satellite communications very effectively. And the second important point was that all the INSATs and GSATs which are launched are obviously India focused. They focuses on Indian landmass and the areas around us. Initially, the satellites were launched to broadcast television in the areas around India and Indian landmass. And the larger maritime areas of Indian Ocean get left out. That was the reason to provide a satellite which has got maritime coverage, which is designed for larger sea areas around which are of the interest of the Indian Navy. A dedicated satellite was conceived.
Okay, we'll try and understand more about its importance and how it enables communication networks across the Indian Ocean region and beyond, strengthening the Indian Navy's communication network. But before we delve deeper into all of those aspects, what's remarkable about this particular satellite is that key components of the satellite as well as the launcher this time are indigenous. We'll try and understand from Dr. Prasad about what makes GSAT-7R different from its predecessor. Dr. Prasad, we understand in terms of technology, back when GSAT-7 was launched to now, technology has evolved. But give us and our viewers a sense of some of the key upgrades and the necessities that have been incorporated in the GSAT 7R.
Good evening to you, to the viewers. Okay, GSAT 7R or CMS-03, whatever we call. The uniqueness about it is it works in 3 bands, in fact. Not that earlier satellites were, GSAT 7 was also working in UHF and other bands. This satellite is working in 3 bands, the so-called C-band, extended C-band, and KU band. So at 3 different frequency bands, it is operating. And, and more than that, it is an indigenous satellite built with Indian technology and entirely in India. And we are not reliant on anybody in this regard. So this is very special about it. And, except for you mentioned about GSAT 11, GSAT 11 was built in India, but it was launched from French Guiana.
Right.
But this time the satellite is ours. 4,400 is not a small number as far as communication satellites are concerned. So the fact that it works in 3 different bands, normally, earlier satellites, not that they were not working, but anyway, they were first when we started building communication satellites, we were with C band and extended C band. Later only we graduated to KU band, where you have more bandwidth, considering the fact that it is both for the strategic sector as well as the civilian sector, for both, let us say. And secure communications is very important, and resilience is also very important. It looks from whatever the released information is there, this is quite a unique satellite. Though I would not rate it as, the thing is, such satellites we have built in the past also. Definitely with changing times, with the changing requirements, as far as various threats to the satellites today in space are concerned, definitely there would have been more caution in safeguarding the satellites. But anyway, being an indigenous satellite working in 3 frequency bands with, to ability to facilitate secure communication, robust communication, resilient one, and especially the requirement of the Navy to communicate with the fleet commanders, such things. It looks this satellite is going to play a very important role.
Definitely. Before I go across to Dr. Lele on how this fits into the larger defense architecture and India's strategy in that area, Dr. Prasad, if you could also elaborate on how challenging is it to build a 4.4-ton secure multi-band communication satellite, and which is specially meant for defense users. What does it say about the strategic autonomy and India's defense strategy as far as defense-only use satellites are concerned?
Coming back to that, India built its first communication satellite way back in late 1970s. India's first communication satellite, which was an experimental one, was launched way back in 1981 from French Guiana. Even at that time, we had the ability to build a communication satellite. Now, that was almost 44 years back. After that, from INSAT 2A onwards, operational communication satellites have been built by ISRO. And first we were with C-band and extended C-band. Later we graduated to KU band. And to a certain extent, Ka band also we have, and mobile communications are also there as far as our satellites are concerned. It is not easy to build a satellite of 4.4 tons.
Right.
How many countries have this ability to build such satellites? Very few, in fact, very few. Even many of the European countries, they don't have this kind of ability. Today India has such ability in the sense, in which you can take all the, I would say popularly, all the ingredients of a satellite into a particular place And then the satellite can be built, tested extensively. There are so many tests. We have to remember one thing in pertaining to space: prevention is better than cure. You ensure that the satellite works at any cost, so that you test, retest, and build redundancies. For all these things, we have the facilities under one roof in India, in fact. And that is how we have built it. And when it comes to building a satellite, it is not like building some vehicle which works in the on the roads or in the atmosphere. It is not like that, because space environment is totally alien to us.
Okay, so based on what you've highlighted on the expansion of India's space capabilities, especially in recent years, Dr. Dele, my question to you has two parts. What does this particular mission demonstrate about India's self-reliance in space launch capabilities? And more so, how does the launch of GSAT-7R fit into India's larger military space strategy, space-based defense architecture?
I think as far as this satellite launch is concerned, like the earlier heaviest satellite for more than 5,000 kg was launched by using Ariane-5 rocket. This is for the first time India has launched such a heavy satellite and a strategic satellite by using LMV-3, India's own rocket launcher. If you see LMV-3 development, we have launched Chandrayaan-2 by using it, Chandrayaan-3 by using it. For private players, we had done 2 launches also. So we were pretty confident about this particular vehicle, which can carry so much amount of a weight. If you compare with the last heaviest satellite launched by India, the weight was more than 10%. So it was a very significant amount of an increase in the payload capacity of the satellite. And it's really remarkable that India's system has worked perfectly all right. The basic challenge with LMV-3 is all these years we have been struggling with the cryogenic engine technology. And this technology, now one can say with a lot amount of a confidence that India has mastered that art of a cryogenic engine technology also. So that is one aspect of it. Other aspect from a strategic perspective, if you have to really look at it, let's go back slightly to the history. We had launched the earlier naval satellite in the year 2013, commonly known as the Rukmini. This satellite was essentially required because of various strategic compulsions. You have witnessed tsunami in the year 2005. Subsequently, you had Mumbai terror attacks, which could be considered as an act of a maritime terrorism. Then subsequently, we had a lot of challenges in the high seas also with piracy and trafficking. So there were a lot amount of challenges as far as Indian Navy was concerned. They were facing into high seas and coastal areas too. So under those circumstances, they were required to have an independent satellite system, a communication satellite system. There was a dependence on satellites like Inmarsat, where we were picking up the information based on the foreign satellites. So we wanted an indigenous satellite, and that was launched in the year 2013. And now the upgrade of that has been launched yesterday, which is GSAT-7R. So I think from a strategic perspective, it is very important to have such types of satellites. It's not that only Indian Navy is having a specific dedicated satellite. Indian Air Force got a satellite, GSAT-7A, in the year 2021, right. And they have also now asked for replacement of that satellite because that satellite is also going to age. Indian Army is going to get maybe by next year a GSAT-7B for them also. So all the 3 services communication requirements are being looked at. Indian Navy was the early bird, one can say. Indian Air Force has got it, and Indian Army is expected to get in a year or 2.
Okay, Admiral, so we'll understand how does it boost the Indian Navy's capabilities, especially in the Indian Ocean region. How do you think a satellite like the GSAT-7R is going to strengthen Navy's maritime domain awareness in the IOR? It's an area we all know where communication networks are very, very critical.
Yeah, so basically our platforms, they operate all over Indian Ocean. Our ships, they operate in the Indian Ocean, beyond Indian Ocean. Our submarines, aircraft, maritime reconnaissance aircraft, they are all operating in a very diverse areas. They pick up, the sensors pick up contacts. The contacts are transmitted real time back to India, to our command centers. The pictures are collated, and the collated picture is again sent back to the commanders at sea. The communications, that's the textual communications, voice communications, data communications, all happen in real time, and the satellite connectivity is the primary method of providing the networking. So the satellite is the backbone of so-called maritime domain awareness.
Admiral, if I could ask you to elaborate for better understanding of us and our viewers, I don't know how much of it can you share, but how does satellite-based communication change the manner in which the fleets operate, they coordinate with each other, and even respond, especially during emergencies or when you perhaps see a potential threat?
Yeah. So basically, if you see earlier, when there were no satellites, the fleets used to operate on what we call radio frequencies, RF, HF, VHF. The UHF, VHF, that is very high frequency, ultra high frequency. These kind of frequencies are for short range communications. And the HF and the VLF are for very long range. There's kind of a worldwide. But they are very, it comes, there are vagaries of nature. There could be loss of clarity. There could be communication breakage, etc. So the RF communications was not as reliable as we wanted it to be. When the satellite communications came, obviously Inmarsat came in mid-90s, and the Indian Navy started using it. Was very reliable, but it was a commercial system. It was not owned by India. It was a multinational system, and including the communication sets, the satellite communication sets were also foreign made. They were imported. And therefore, once we have our own satellite, and it is not only the satellite, it is also the Earth stations, the indigenous satellite communication systems, which are now produced in India, which are fitted on our ships, submarine, and aircraft. And all the connectivity which goes behind that, all the computer systems, all the mission computer systems, etc., all now being done indigenously. So the communications flow over the satellite channels, and the data is collated over our servers, etc. Everything is indigenous. So this gives a big boost to real-time connectivity and communications at sea.
Yeah. That's remarkable to hear, the kind of boost that an indigenous project is going to provide to the Indian Navy, and especially in a critical area as the Indian Ocean region and beyond. But Dr. Prasad, does the launch of GSAT-7R, and Dr. Lele also mentioned dedicated satellites for the Indian Air Force, there's one in the pipeline for the Indian Army. Does it reflect a change or a shift over the years in how perhaps now India is ready to invest more and more in our long-term defense strategy?
I can't directly say anything about it, but the thing is, with changing times, India is also changing, that much we can say. There was a time when India was defined in a particular way. India was a nation of snake charms, that kind of thing. But today's India, look at it, it is totally different. It is the confident India, with changing times, with changing responsibilities, and especially with the kind of ambience and which we have in our neighborhood, and the other challenges which are being faced at the global level by us. Taking all these into account, India is modernizing, and it has already modernized itself. At the same time, yes, when it comes to security, we cannot compromise on that. So obviously, as Sri Gujral was telling, the kind of communications which were terrestrial, they have their own limitations. Reliability is one aspect. And, at the same time, bandwidth as to how much of information you can transmit within a second, let us say. It is like a narrow channel kind of thing, which is not reliable. It can be clogged at sometimes. But space communication, especially the kind of KU band which you are using, is its bandwidth is very wide. In the sense, you can send more information. And since you have the ability to build systems which have such capabilities, speaks volumes for India. And more than that, building a satellite is one thing. As Dr. Lele mentioned earlier, building a launcher which is reliable and launching satellites on our own when we have requirements. Okay, that is the other thing. In fact, India has already built 6 generations of launch vehicles. When we have our launch vehicles, when we have the wherewithal to build big, robust satellites and capable satellites, and which can facilitate secure communication for our forces, what is wrong in it, in the sense, with the kind of requirements which our forces have today? So it is quite but natural for India to go in for space systems, whether it is for the Navy, Air Force, or the Army, in fact. And coming back to launches very quickly, let me tell you, India has perfected 6 generations of launch vehicles. The first SLV-3 was tested successfully way back in 1980. Dr. Kalam was the project director for that. After that, we have 5 generations: ASLV, PSLV, GSLV, LVM-3 now, and SSLV we have. And now one more thing I would like to tell you, the strategic implications. Earlier we used to, why earlier? Even today we call PSLV as the workhorse launch vehicle of India. Look at this launcher. This LVM-3, which was earlier called as GSLV Mark III, till now it had 8 launches. Dr. Leela mentioned about it. First one was a suborbital launch. I still remember in 2014 end, in fact. Then after that, all the 7 launches have been successful. 72 of the foreign satellites have been launched by LVM-3. It has launched Chandrayaan-2, Chandrayaan-3, and many of our earlier communication satellites. Now it has launched the heaviest and quite a capable satellite, a communication satellite, which can facilitate secure communications. So all these things, having the ability to do all these things, and depending on its current requirement and future projections, it is quite but natural for India to go in for such high-tech systems. Thank you.
That's right. India has also plans to expand its military satellite network to perhaps 78 by 2031, Dr. Lele, if I'm not wrong.
Yes.
In fact, Operation Sindoor also, if we look at it, it's shown that space today is no longer a support arm. It's a decisive factor in today's warfare, something that was demonstrated effectively by the Indian Armed Forces during Operation Sindoor. How urgently do you think does India need to fast track its space military programs? A lot has been done. We have dedicated military satellites also. We have expanded our space capabilities, and especially pertaining to the 3 wings of the military. But in terms of achieving that vision, the 78 platforms by 2031, which are the areas in which we need to fast track our efforts?
I think if you really ask me, the requirement is as of yesterday. Because if you see the modern warfare, and particularly during Op Sindoor, there was a realization that it's not only Pakistan, that China gives all sorts of facilities as far as satellites are concerned to Pakistan also.
Yes.
So under those circumstances, one can say that India's both the adversaries have got capacities and capabilities. China has got one of the best navigational network called Baidu system, and they are offering a military grade signal to Pakistan. So the requirement is definitely there. We consider space as a force multiplier as far as all the 3 services are concerned. And that's why we are having various programs where we want to not only have a communication satellites, but also what we call reconnaissance satellites, or few people call them as a spy satellites also. So imagery becomes a very important element as far as warfare is concerned. And that is where now India is going to do a concentration to have more number of satellites, because there are always gaps as far as picking up the information is concerned, because you can't have 24/7 availability of imagery tracing your areas of possible conflict regions. So under these circumstances, you need to have more number of satellites. You need to have better sensor systems. Like I was earlier making mention, after Mumbai attacks, we had taken satellites from Israel, particularly the synthetic aperture radar technology, which allows you to see a particular area 24/7 in all weather conditions. Subsequently, ISRO has been very successful in developing this technology. Now we got indigenous synthetic aperture radar technology. So there are a lot of sensor technologies which have been improved, and those technologies will be used when we are going to have our own constellation as far as military systems are concerned. So the requirement is definitely there. The need of the hour is there. India is making a progress, And one more important thing which I would like to point out over here is that this job cannot be done by ISRO alone. So there will be a good amount of investment by the private actors also. India's ecosystem as far as space industry is concerned has evolved over a period of time. Now we have got a policy also as far as investments by the private space players into the system. So I think the ecosystem is gearing up. Almost it is ready to take on various challenges. And in near future, I think our military requirements should be fulfilled in a quick point in time.
Okay, based on what you've said, I'll take very quick questions from both our guests. Dr. Prasad, to you first. Dr. Lele spoke about the role of private companies. What role do you see the private space companies playing in India's defense satellite ecosystem, especially in the coming years?
Yeah, definitely. I'm an optimist in this regard. Look at the number of startups which are coming up, but at the same time, the people who are working with space, okay, they are becoming more bolder and bolder thanks to the government's vision. In fact, as to leaving ISRO for doing innovative things, routine stuff, you give it to the industry. That was the thing. It was a well thought out strategy, and I'm sorry, I'm sure that the ecosystem, elements of the ecosystem, especially the private sector, is responding quite well. And from taking all these things into account, yes, things are going to be better in future.
Okay, Admiral Gujral, one last question from you, because Dr. Lele spoke about building deterrence in space. We often talk about deterrence on land or in air, in seas, but now experts say the next frontier of deterrence is space. So how are we going to fast track the efforts? We are on track, but to achieve the level on which we see countries like China being in, and then with the kind of threats that are posed to India, both on the northern and as well as on the western frontier, how do we need to fast track our efforts?
As Dr. Lele has, and both my co-panelists have mentioned, that we, apart from the communication satellites, we operate a wide range of reconnaissance satellites, both imagery as well as the synthetic aperture radar, which have got all-weather capability, all day and night weather capability. So firstly, our focus is to increase their numbers, to increase our capacity, so that we are not waiting for the satellite passes, and we have almost 24/7 coverage of our area of operations and area of interest. So our first priority is to increase our capacity, and obviously the capability of the platforms, both to provide the sensor information as well as to protect itself and to protect it from interference from adversary. All these factors are now slowly and gradually getting evolved. So when you have and we have made very significant progress in these areas. Our platforms in space are second to none. So the deterrence is that the number of platforms which are in space, and they are they are able to withstand interference both from natural sources as well as from the adversarial sources, and they are able to operate in adverse conditions. That is the kind of deterrence we would like to build from space.
Absolutely.
So that the ground forces, they are able to they are able to get very reliable the inputs, and we are not worried that these inputs will be broken or they will not be available So you have to build redundancies, you have to build capacity, and you have to improve capability. And like they've said, we are optimists that in all these fields a lot of progress is being made.
Certainly, a lot of progress has been made, but given the kind of threats that India poses, given its geography, the fact that China provides real-time space-based intelligence to our biggest adversary, Pakistan, it's imperative on India's part to treat space as perhaps another operational domain and not just an extension of defense modernization. Perhaps that is one area wherein we need to speed up our efforts. With that, we'll have to call it a wrap on this edition of Perspective. Thank you once again to all our guests for joining us on the program, sharing your thoughts, your views with us and our viewers. To you viewers, thank you very much for your time as well.
To watch more programs of Sansad TV, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and don't forget to like and share them.